Doodlebud. I guess it was about a month ago or so I was reviewing this Waterman Expert 3, but I think I was cheating on it. As beautiful as it is, and I absolutely love this pen, the whole time I was using it, I was wishing I was using another pen. So we all know what happens next, and here it is. So what we're looking at is this gorgeous Waterman Carène. I've been thinking about one of these pens for a long time. Got to use one at a meetup here, the local Vancouver Pen Club. Thought it looked beautiful and wrote wonderfully as well. Wasn't fond of just the standard colors like the black. There's even a few different ones. They actually have this one that you can available in the Carène with. This is the L'Essence du Bleu. Beautiful. I think it's absolutely gorgeous, and it's available in this pen too. Thought it looked really great. They have one that's similar to this in more of a burgundy color, but I knew they had them in the green and I couldn't find it, and that's because it was discontinued. And I really wanted it in the green. So the hunt began, and I looked around and I found this one for a very reasonable price. I was a little suspect because I thought this pen looks like it's in mint condition and it's a discontinued color. Why am I getting it for so cheap? When I got the pen, I can't say for sure, but maybe I have a little idea of why it was the price I got it for. So I'm going to show you what that's all about. But I had to put a little work into the nib, if that's any type of a hint. And boy, am I glad I've kind of taught myself how to do this stuff, because I got a totally sweet deal on an absolutely gorgeous pen. I'm going to have to do some glam shots. I'll have to play with lighting because it is very difficult to capture these colors and just the sheer beauty in it. I don't know, maybe I'll do it in here in the little room I'm working in, or maybe I'll have to take this outside in the sunlight to capture it. But this pen is absolutely stunning. Absolutely love it. It has a medium 18 karat gold nib on here that now I've had to tune, and it writes perfectly. So let's run you through this pen and yeah, show you why I'm a big advocate. If you can learn how to tune a nib, just basic stuff, you can score some pretty sweet pens for a really sweet price. Jumping into things, I thought I'd give you a quick size comparison if you're not familiar with the Carène. Here we have a Lamy 2000 and a Graf von Faber-Castell Tomitio. So it's just a really nice mid-sized pen. If you like any of these, it's pretty close. Caps off, you can see a little bit more length in the Carène, but very similar profile. And now when you post it, even more like the Lamy 2000. So this is a great pen. I love my Lamy 2000, absolutely. Not everyone loves this one. They don't like the section, maybe. The little ears drive them nuts. The fact it's a hooded nib they don't really care for. So this would be a pen to check out if you sort of like the idea of the Lamy 2000, but you're not in love with it. I am in love with this one. Like, again, I don't know if this is going to capture very well in the video. The color on this one is called Sea Green Shimmer, and it just, with the gold, I don't know what could be possibly better than this color combination. You got the inlay nib on here. It's an 18 karat gold inlay nib. You don't get many inlay nibs anymore. Really, really beautiful. This thing just has some tiny little micro scratches there on the black. A lot of fingerprints as well. It could take me maybe 30 seconds to really buff it out and polish it up, but I've been using this pen nonstop since I got it. You got this nice little slope here at the back. That's a classic part of the styling of this pen. Cartridge converter, I'll take that off in a second. Little black dot there at the end finial. You got gorgeous cap band on here, has Waterman, and then France on the back. And also, much like the Lamy 2000, it has a really nice spring clip. This looks like it's not one, but here you go, you can see it. So it comes up and it pivots. I absolutely love spring clips, and just the way it's designed as well. This just slips over a shirt pocket, so you got that little lip that's right there, and you're not bending it, so you have that spring mechanism in there. Just beautiful. Nice little taper at the end. So it seems like a bit of a thin pen, but it's not. It's got some of the profiles of a thin pen, but it just fits perfect. Nice little snap. It's not as, pleasurable as, say, a Lamy 2000 snap cap or whatever, but it does snap on there very nice. And it just, yeah, gorgeous. It is a metal body pen construction, so it has got some substantial weight to it. For a smaller pen, it's quite heavy. So let's just say about 35 grams. How much of that is in the cap? Yeah, about 10.5 there. It's worth 24 and change there on the main body as it spins around. So quite a bit heavier than, say, a Lamy 2000, you know, let's call it 15 and a half or so versus a pretty hefty pen here. So if you like a little more weight to it, yeah, it just fits quite nicely in the hand. I can use it unposted. I sort of do prefer to post it if I'm going to write a little bit longer, but it's definitely substantial. So if you like a bit of a weight to your pen, this is one you want to check out for sure. Pop off the barrel so you can have a look. We do have a few O-rings, and you can feel it snug down on the O-rings, so it has a nice tactile feel to it and just secures ever so nicely like that. The friction on those O-rings is just bang on. There are a couple ears, but they're much slighter profile. They don't sort of protrude out of the section like it does in the Lamy 2000. And oh yeah, the hole is down here to fill it, and so if you leave your finger on it, you're going to get ink on it. Pops off. You do have a Waterman converter with the pen as well, so you got like some stainless steel in here too. Just pops it off. You can use a different converter if you need to, although this one is a little bit unique. So it has like this metal collar around it. I have not seen that before, so it could be unique to the Carène. But yeah, the converter works quite well. And okay, let me wipe this up. Okay, washed up my hands a bit there. In case you're wondering, the ink that we're using today is Private Reserve Avocado. You'll see it in the writing sample. But everything goes together very nice. It's a very well-made pen. Threads are great. Like just, they cannot be any smoother going on to there. It posts just lovely. Now, it is a little different than the Expert 3. So one cool thing about this pen, you know, snap cap, it's a little different mechanism, so it feels different. When you go to post it, it snaps on there too. So that's actually kind of a nice feature with it. On the Carène, it's just a simple friction fit like with most other pens as well. But yeah, you just put it in there. I mean, this is like Granddad's pen. You see him, he's had this pen for decades. He has it with him all the time. He always writes with this pen, and you might wonder what's so special about it. And then maybe one day you inherit it and go, oh, I get it now. It's a lovely pen. And this is. So yeah, we're going to do now is write with it. I'll show you how it writes now. I have some paper from when I first got it, and I was so excited when I got the pen. The condition was fantastic. So I was like, oh, thank goodness. From the pictures, you can't always tell everything. Condition was great. But I quickly found out the writing was off, and that sort of let me know maybe, again, I'm speculating here, but maybe why I got such a good price on the pen. Because for such a gorgeous pen, 18 karat nib, Waterman, all the great things with this one. You hear great things about how well it writes. It was very smooth, but it was very dry. And if I paid full price for this pen in this beautiful color, I'd be disappointed too. And if I didn't know what to do, you're sort of left with the decision of, well, what do I do with this thing now? It's not writing quite right. Do I return it? Maybe you wait, and then now your opportunity to do that without having to pay quite a bit of money has passed. You send it off to someone to get tuned. You're not sure. So again, I'm speculating, but when I got the pen, it just wasn't writing quite right. You had to write very, very slow. It would skip a bit. You have to write so slow that no one's writing that slow. So if you wrote at normal speed, it was skipping and missing. So I would have been very frustrated with how this pen wrote compared to how it looked. So I'll show you what that looked like. Now I'll show you what I did, and then we'll do a writing sample to show you how well it writes now. So I got the pen, inked it up, of course, after admiring it, and I noticed right away it was kind of missing a little bit. It seemed very dry and skipping. So this was a kind of regular, you know, your figure eights that you do at normal speed. It was off a bit. If you wrote nice and slow, you got proper ink flow, but I had to write way too slow. This was, you know, a little bit faster, still much slower than my normal writing. And you can see here, like, it's just missing a little bit. So I did a bunch of writing and determined, yeah, this nib seems off. So I just used basic inspection tools. This is just a little 10x loop. I have this other, it's not 200, it's 20x that goes onto the phone. And I checked the gap here at the end of the nib, and it was pretty much a non-existent gap. These tines were right smashed together. And it would write, but it was way too dry, and if you want a proper ink flow, you had to push down a little bit. So it's a little trickier on this, because for a lot of pens, say on this one here, it takes a Bach nib, for example, you just pop out the nib and you can open the tines up on it pretty easy and work on it and get it running. And this pen, by the way, it's going to need the same work as well. This being an inlay nib, however, you can't just pull the nib off and work on it. You got to do it, while it's in the pen. And you can see we don't have much room over top here. You don't got much tying going past the end of the pen, so it's a little bit more tricky. I was debating about capturing this on the phone, but I really had to focus, and it's a one-shot kind of deal. I don't want to mess up the pen for the sake of doing a video. But I'll walk you through what I did. So yes, I got out my steel feeler gauges. Some of you might be freaking out already. You can get brass shims as well, but I got these. I've used feeler gauges a whole bunch, so I'm used to being very careful on how to use them properly. I would check it with the smallest one, so it's 1.5 thou. The gap should be less than that, but I could barely fit it in between the tines, so I would fish it in extremely carefully. So there's no breather hole, and again, I'm not going to do this on camera, but I would fish it in, slide it up, and check that gap as well. I could see it was too tight, and it would really grab on this feeler gauge, so it was way too tight. So now, how do you open this up? So in order to fix the nib, you're left with having to do what I would consider to be a bit of a risky move. So what I'd do is go up to a thicker gauge. Where is it here? I'd use the 2.5 thousandths of an inch, or even the 3 thou, but I started with the 2.5. And again, I can't show this to you on camera and do it properly at the same time without probably messing things up. But I would fish this in, slide it forward. We had enough room here. And then you would put it through the end, and then just put your finger near the end of the feeler gauge and apply very gently, like the minimum you need to do, but a little lateral movement, and then go on the other side and do lateral movement there as well. So fish it in, press here, press here, very gently. Minimal amount you need to do to just kind of open it up a little bit. I probably spent it's a good 30 minutes really just working it bit by bit, slowly. I'll show you why this is a risky thing to do. Much easier to show you on this nib. So if you have the feeler gauge in like this, and then you press over this way, and then back and forth, and you're wiggling that, you really run the risk of actually bending the very end and just taking the tipping material, instead of sort of opening the tines, you kind of bend them away from each other, so you're left with that. That is not what you want whatsoever. So you really have to be cautious with this and apply just the smallest amount of pressure, and try to also press it a little bit further back so you're opening more in the bulk of the tines instead of applying pressure on the tipping. So you can sort of see why I didn't record this, because I don't think I could do a good job of tuning the nib and a good job of recording it at the same time. So what we're left with is a good job on the nib. So the process was essentially just go extremely slow, very careful, use minimal amount of force, just ever so slightly, and then constantly check it on what usually was the loop, because it's really quick, and then finally I would check it on that one to really get good magnification. And slowly, and oh so slowly, watch the gap just separate ever so slightly at the end, and just slowly work it, see how it writes, look at it, check it over and over again, and now we're left with a perfect gap on there. It's tuned absolutely wonderfully, no more skips, and it's just wonderfully smooth. You can run the risk of the tines moving up and down a little bit. I've done this a few times, so they were still aligned, but maybe they need to be tweaked a bit. But if you go too hard, they can go here. You can really damage a nib easily doing it that way. But if it's inlay, and I don't know how to remove these without damaging something, so this was the method I employed doing this. But yeah, it's a bit of a risky way to do it. There's probably folks out there that know a much better way to approach this, but this is what worked for me, and I was willing to just really go slow. And now it's writing just spectacularly. So let's get out the paper. We obviously got ink in it, as you can see it's all over me, and let's start writing. To just give you a comparison, I'll do the same writing sample on here. This is Muji paper. I'll go to Rhodia in a second, but so you can see these were missing a little bit. It's not missing now at all. It is absolutely perfect. pen is properly tuned and has good flow when you can take just the weight of the pen and it will draw a beautiful smooth line, no problem. So I'm not even pushing down. It's just coming across there, no problem, just using the weight of the pen. It could not do that whatsoever when I first got it. Here's a quick thought I would share while I'm writing. So I picked this pen up for $155. That's about the same price as an entry-level gold nib pen, something like a Pilot E95S. The reason I got it for this price is because there was a problem with the nib, and because I knew how to tune it. And now I get a really beautiful gold nib pen, tough to get too, in a limited edition color, so to speak. And I get it for the price of a new entry pen. And so learning how to do just basic stuff, this was a little bit more, but basic nib tuning can really, really help out your whole experience when it comes to fountain pens. I have some videos, you might want to check them out. So I have to tell you, a number of my absolute favorite writing pens needed nib work. Found this one for a sweet deal because the nib was off. This one, the guy messed up the nib, picked up a $900 pen for 20 bucks. This one here, beautiful pen. They didn't like the feel of it, but it also needed some work. This needed work that was beyond something I could do, and here was just a new pen I reviewed the other day. A little bit of goo there in the tines. That got fixed up. Now this thing writes buttery smooth, and the flow is perfect. So same story with this one. Now again, brand new pens, everything in a perfect world, they should all write absolutely spot on and wonderfully. The cleanliness of theory is no match for the dirtiness of reality. And so this stuff does happen. And so again, I'm speculating, don't know if this was maybe the reason the person sold it or they just didn't love the pen that much, but I'm guessing if it wrote the way it writes now, they would probably love the pen and they would not have it up for sale. But I'm very, very pleased with this pen. So happy I got one. I absolutely love it. The construction is great. I didn't even know it had a spring clip like this. That made it even better. Everything on this pen I just adore. So again, I don't expect everyone to be able to do this type of stuff, but there is real simple stuff. Come back to this one just because I have it and it's a nice big size nib. You know, a lot of pens just need a very simple tune. You might have one tine that's up a touch or down just a hair, and all you have to do is take it, just pull it up a little bit like that, and all of a sudden your problem is solved. Some pens literally need a 10-second adjustment, and now the pen is absolutely perfect. So I have a bunch of videos on the topic. Again, don't do anything you don't think you can do. Practice on cheaper pens first. And then if you got a bunch of practice under your belt, you won't be as scared to tackle a real gem like something like this here. So not only was I sort of daydreaming about having this Carène while I was writing with the Expert 3, I found one, purchased it, and brought it home, and they're going to be sharing a case together. So I don't know, feelings might be a little bit hurt here, but that's the way it goes in the pen game. So we'll leave it there for now. I'd love to hear from you down in the comments. Do you have a Waterman Carène, or maybe what's your pen that you think is just absolutely gorgeous and elegant and your absolute favorite writer as well? Hit subscribe if you haven't. All sorts of information, including discount codes and things like that. So check the description on my videos. It could save you some money. We'll leave it there for now. Catch you next time.